Welcome back, everyone. It's me, David Teicher, Chief Content Officer here at Brand Innovators. We are on day 3 of our sports marketing upfronts and summit here during Super Bowl week in beautiful, sunny Arizona. We're backstage again, and I'm sitting down with the wonderful Gabrielle Dallas Wesley, the Chief Marketing Officer of Mars Wrigley North America. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I know you just spoke on our main stage, and we really appreciate you joining us and sharing with our community. And I'm excited to kind of dive into a few things, here, follow up on some stuff in the world of sports marketing and the Super Bowl. But first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the Chief Marketing Officer for our Mars Wrigley North American business. That includes a lot of brands that you know and love, like M&M's, Snickers, Twix, Skittles, Starburst, Extra, Orbit, Altoids.
Awesome. Well, I think we've heard a few of those, just I think. But thank you again for spending some time with us. We'll dive right into it. At every event that we go to, different industry conferences and sort of large gatherings, there's always different buzzwords and terms. I mean, we're a very buzzword-dominated industry. We were just at CES a few weeks ago where every conversation's around AI or the metaverse and Web3. Here, the term du jour is all around cultural relevance and chasing that ever-elusive cultural relevancy. So my question to you is a bit of a two-parter. One is, what does that mean to you? And is it important for brands to be culturally relevant in order to sell what you're selling and do what you want to do?
Yeah. So the way that I think about cultural relevancy is, are you embedded into the conversations that are happening in culture? One of the things for some of our brands, we strive to be more than just the products that we sell. And so cultural relevancy is a way to be able to, go beyond just products and, that transactional exchange to really being about brand salience and a feeling and affinity, and having that talk value where things that are happening in culture, your brand is included in that conversation.
Well, I think there are some brands right now that are very top of mind in people's conversations within the portfolio, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that soon. But let's continuing on that path, right? Like, we're talking about cultural moments in sports, right? And whether you're talking about sports marketing and as a discipline or specifically Super Bowl advertising, right? These are moments in time, they're events. How does that fit into the broader strategy, right? Super Bowl is one day out of a 365-day year. So how does sports and things like the Super Bowl fit into that bigger year-long strategy?
Yeah. So it all starts with, as a marketer, I'm consumer obsessed with consumers. So wherever consumers are, whatever matters to them, I'm obsessed with. And a lot of our consumers are obsessed with sports. So that's why it's important. It all starts and ends with the consumer. So wherever they are is where we want to be. And sports play a really strong part of a lot of consumers' lives. They're not just fans, they're fanatics, right? They follow the teams. They wear the team colors. They cheer. There's a talk value. You go to any place where there's conversation, a bar, a restaurant, they're talking about their favorite sports teams. And so that's why it makes sense for brands to participate in that conversation, because if you're consumer obsessed, you're obsessed with what your consumers are obsessed with.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me nicely into my next question, which is, maybe one of the hottest topics in our industry right now is this debate over performance versus brand. And, is the pendulum swinging from one to the other or all over the place? And you get a lot of very passionate responses when you talk to leaders in our industry these days. So my question to you is, right, the Super Bowl or sports marketing in general has historically or traditionally been maybe more of a brand play, an awareness and equity, a conversation driver. Is that changing? Are there new things that you're looking at where it's more about tying things directly to the bottom line or looking at that performance? How do you determine the effectiveness of your sports marketing or potentially Super Bowl advertising?
Yeah, so I think equity building and performance marketing, it's an and, not an or. You have to build your brand. Consumers want to know what your brand stands for, what you're about, what will you wear to a party, what movie does your brand like to, love, so those are the things that people want to know and have a connection and engage with your brand. So that part is really important, and that sets the stage for lifetime value. That's not something that you measure in short term. You measure that in more long-term chunks, but you have to be consistent and you have to seed those things over time. And you have performance marketing, because then ultimately we're not in, the non-for-profit business. We're, consumption and purchase is really important. So you have to have those levers that allow you to convert awareness to conversion to purchase. So I think both of them go hand in hand. I think where a lot of brands can make the mistake is having to choose between the two, because you can do a lot to address ROI and short-term sales. That will not necessarily get you a lifetime value or a long-term value. That might be okay for some categories, but for categories like ours, it's an and.
Absolutely, and we just had one of our last speakers here, talk about screen to shelf, right? Kind of same idea, connecting those dots. So appreciate that. So my last question to you, we're going to depart from the world of sports for a second. Another maybe hot button issue, talking especially to the senior leaders in our community, is around CMO tenure. And depending on what you're looking at, the reports are that it's maybe at its lowest level in a decade, 18 months, 24 months. It really seems like there's something going on. And I'm curious if you have any insight into what we can do as an industry to set CMOs up for success better, especially as this role is, evolving, clearly before our eyes in real time. How can we, address this as an industry?
Yeah, I think there are two things going on. One, I hate to say this, but I think as marketers, we're really great at marketing brands and not necessarily that great at marketing ourselves. So if you think about marketing or the chief marketing officer, we have relegated some of our responsibility to chief commercial officers, chief revenue officers, chief digital officers, and a lot of the things that we've traditionally held in marketing, because we haven't moved at the pace of change or the pace of time. We now have to double down on those things and have someone that oversees that. But at the end of the day, all of those things, revenue, commercial, digital, that's all marketing. And so how do we get back to what marketing's remit actually is and see that through to the organization and prove our worth again? I think the second thing that is going on there is that marketing has gotten a little bit of a bad rap as it relates to just being about creative and just being about advertising. And it's so much more than that. One way to combat that is to make sure that your marketers have tremendous business acumen. It's one of the capabilities that I am committed to building in my teams and continue to develop in myself. If you have that business acumen, you have a better shot at being able to solidify your plans and gain credibility with your peers, the CFO, CIO, in those spaces, because you're able to talk their language.
I love that. I mean, sometimes, right, we do speak our own language, right? So if we're going to, if you are going to, or other CMOs are communicating what we're doing, what's going on, you have to speak, you can't speak the in language of the marketer, you got to speak the language of the CFO, the CEO of the board, right? Because that makes a lot of sense.
The other thing I would add to that is, we're marketers. So a lot of us have the professional attention span of a gnat. So I don't necessarily think that it's all the industry. I think some of it is just, we want to try new and different things, and so we're always searching for new and different experiences, and that may also have a lot to do with the tenure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's certainly a complex conversation, but I appreciate your insight. So I lied. That wasn't actually the last question. The last question is the most important question. So I'm going to ask you to take the magic football.
Ooh.
And courtesy of our friends at Wilson Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know, who do you have? Who's your pick, Chiefs or Eagles?
Well, I don't have a pick. I'm looking forward to a high-scoring, dynamic game.
Okay.
Where I just don't have a horse in a race.
All right. So that's it. Okay. That's our first unique answer. I like it. Okay. Safe but fun. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure. I hope everything goes phenomenally over the next few days and this weekend, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
Of course.